Hey everybody, this is Jason out here at our survival school in Colorado. Got a nice find here with some stinging nettle behind me. Now stinging nettle's got a few different uses. First of all, it is edible. You got to get it before it flowers, otherwise the toxins in it are a little bit too much for your kidneys. Now they call them stinging nettle because there are little tiny hairy thorns on here that have a little tiny drop of acid that do sting, and they're a bit uncomfortable. It's not like poison ivy where it's oily and it cause a rash and it stays around a long time. Just for 3 or 4 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, that you have a little bit of discomfort, and then it goes away. But the leaves on these are edible. You have to boil them first. New growth is always better, but you can eat most of the leaves on here, or all of the leaves on here. You boil them, even the water from it, you can drink it as tea. Usually, or the acid will boil out. If you're a little bit worried about it, don't drink the water, don't drink the tea, and double boil the leaves. The taste is a lot like spinach. Actually, people prefer it over the taste of spinach. I know a lot of people that I've talked to, and it has more nutrients than spinach. So a great plant to eat out here in the wild. If you've got nothing else, a good source of protein. But anyways, another use for these guys is once you strip those leaves off, the stalk or the stem on it can be used for cordage. You have to strip out the outer bark, if you will, and the outer flesh, and you use that outer flesh for cordage. Similar, if you haven't seen my video with yucca, it's the same way, same twisting method to make the cordage out of, and it's quite strong. It's way stronger than cordage from pine roots. Actually, when I get this done right, you can put all your strength on it, on a little tiny strand of it, and it won't break. I'm going to go ahead and harvest some of these, and we're going to go back and make some, we're going to boil up some of the nettle so we can eat it. When you are harvesting something like this, even if you don't intend to stay in an area for a really long time, if you're not starving to death, don't harvest everything in one area. Don't take it all. Allow it to repopulate. If you can, the seeds are on it, scatter them around so that you can regerminate everything and it'll grow back. But there's quite a bit here, and I got quite a bit down a little ways further, so I'm just gonna harvest a few pieces of this so that we can show you how to make this. To harvest this, because of the thorns on it, you're gonna need a pair of gloves. Otherwise, your hands are gonna be pretty unhappy with you. If you're going to be doing it quite a bit, wear long sleeve shirts. But I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to cut it down at the base so I can get the most use out of it. Some of these you can just snap off with your hands, but we'll just use my knife to make life easier. I'm going to take the thicker ones so that I can get the cordage use out of it. So that's all I'm going to harvest. So I left quite a bit here. I took about 5 of these just so you can see what we got going on. But okay, so I got my piece of nettle here. It's got the thorns on it, some on the leaves, or quite a few on the stems. All I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it by the top, and I'm going to grab it and just pull downwards gently, and it's going to pull all those leaves off. Now I can take this little bundle back and throw it in a cooking pot. Obviously I would first pick the stems or anything dead off first before I threw it in the pot. But as you see, it comes out pretty easy. Now I got some seeds up here. I'm going to come over here into the grass, and I'm going to push the seeds away. Hopefully those will repollinate. Now I've got just my stem here, and I'm going to work my glove up and down this a little bit more to get the rest of the thorns off so it won't sting me as much. Usually on your palms, your hands, and your fingers, it doesn't bother you as much as it does, say, the fleshy part of your arm and back of your hand is a little bit uncomfortable, but it does go away pretty quickly. So now I've got my stem here, and there's different ways you can process this, but it's a little more difficult than some of the other plants out there that you can make cordage out of, but you just want the outer flesh on this. So what I'll probably do is I can take the tip of my knife and just run it down the length of the stem. It's not super easy to do, but I'm just going to crack this open, slice it open. Make sure you're careful so you don't cut yourself. The beauty of a bushcraft knife is of this size. They're smaller, easy to control. If you have a surface to do this on, it's probably better. Okay, let's see if I can get it stripped here. Usually I let these dry out a little bit, and I'm able to, I set them on a table and crush them up a little bit, just like the flat edge of my blade or the handle. I'll just crush these so they're a little bit more workable. It's gonna make me out to be a liar here to be able to peel this one off. It's pretty tough. You want to try to get it in long strips, the entire thing. So it takes a little bit of patience. Alright, so you can see here that I'm starting to get it to peel away. It's okay if the fibers come apart. If it comes apart like that, you just want it in long strips. And there are little knots, growth rings I guess, on here. You have to be more careful when you're working around, because if you're not careful it will break at those rings. And if it does, the piece peels off, just take a moment to re-establish your pull, I guess. Well, I'm not going to take a huge amount of time to show you how to make cordage out of this, but you would pull all this off, and I just yanked it off real quick there so I could finish it up. But you would collect quite a few of these to make cordage out of, and don't just throw the needles away. You should sorry, not the needles, but the leaves. Eat those guys, because it's a lot of protein, a lot of nutrients. But this woody stalk, we can just get rid of it. And I should be left with a pretty long piece of the outer flesh or the bark. You let this sit out in the sun and dry for about an hour. It'll shrink up as it dries. If you were to make cordage right away, it would look beautiful at first, but once it dries up, it'll shrivel up and not be as effective. But you know, we'll get a lot of this made up. You let it dry, and then you do the same twist method. You roll it. If you're not sure how to do this, go look at my other videos for yucca cordage. But we're going to roll it until it kinks back on itself. And then we're going to have a loop here. We'll have a top strand and a lower strand. I'm going to roll it away twice, 3 or 4 times until it tightens up. Grab the bottom and flip it back up towards you. Roll it away. Just keep doing that process until you have the length of rope that you want. Sorry, back up here, chop off the top of my head. So I'm just going to roll it, but I'm not going. This video is not about cordage. We're more about the stinging nettle. But there's a little short piece of cordage. We just keep going and going and going. But again, it's very important to let this stuff dry out first. Otherwise, this will shrink. It won't be as fat. So let it dry, and then I can, once it's done and dried up, I can pull on this guy pretty hard, and it's not going to break on me. Pretty good cordage for a bow drill. Probably not quite as strong as yucca. Definitely far stronger than pine root cordage. So if you find this up in the mountain, great find. You know, make rope out of it. You can eat it. You can make tea out of it. It has all sorts of uses. But I'm gonna go back to my camp here. We'll boil up some of these leaves and eat them, and have a little bit extra, like a snack before lunch. All right, so I'm back here at camp with the stinging nettle. I got my assistant Isaiah here helping me out real quick. I'm just gonna put it in my canteen from my kit, and we're just gonna peel these off and pick out the good leaves and put them inside the canteen. Again, there's a little thorns on there that make it pretty uncomfortable, so you should wear gloves. the pads of my fingers are pretty tough, so they usually don't get through my fingers. But I'm gonna put my gloves on real quick and just harvest these off. He's being nice and delicate and slow here. I don't like to play around, so I'm just gonna grab it and pull them all off into a nice pile.
Oh.
Grab this side. I'm just gonna toss this aside later to make cordage out of. I'll just make a little pile here with the leaves and throw it in the canteen. I'm gonna pick the seeds out and I'm gonna repollinate them. Not gonna boil the seeds. Right there looks like a lot of other stuff that people like to grow in Colorado. It's not though, it's stinging nettle. Alright, that's good enough. You can see here, well, probably not because of shadows, but we got, you know, about 1/4 of a canteen full. The new growth is going to be more tender, the old growth, you know, a little bit more chewy or tough. Depending on if you're doing new growth or old growth, boil it from 5 to 15 minutes. I'll probably do a happy medium and boil this for about 10 minutes to make sure that they're tender enough and that the acid boils out of it. Now you can drink the water as a tea, and I'll drink it today, a little bit of it at least. You don't want to drink too much of it because it could burn your throat if you don't boil it right a little bit, or just too much. Too much of anything is always a bad thing. But we're gonna get a little fire started here. We'll put some water in here, drop this down into it, and boil it up, and then we'll eat it. Alright, so I boiled my stinging nettle for about 15 minutes, just the leaves on it, in my canteen here, and it's cool enough to touch. Maybe not. Now the water is going to come out pretty green, almost yellow. Looks like a nice pretty color there. We got our tea. We can drink that tea. And then we got the leaves left in here. See the leaves? They're going to be, you know, a lot like the consistency of spinach. They are, I guess, a little bit gritty, but not too bad. But the taste is pretty good. I'm just going to eat the leaves. We got some stems in here. So I'm going to pick out the stems and just eat them leaves. And they're pretty tasty, but high in protein and some other goodness. I can't remember off the top of my head, sorry, but vitamin D, I believe. But all the stinging has gone away. I'm chomping down on my tongue. Tongue's not stinging, throat's not stinging. It's all the acids boil away. You want some? Give some to Isaiah here since he's looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'll make him eat the toxic parts that I picked off from the side and see what happens, but just kidding.
Not bad. Could use butter.
Yeah. Add, you know, spices to it if you want. Salt, butter. Makes it always more palatable for us that are used to eating gourmet food and not out in the wilderness. But I'm going to drink some of the tea so you can see that it is safe. I'm not sure what kind of flavor to compare this to. I'll give some to Isaiah. Hot.
Man, that is hot.
It's pretty good. I like it. I like the flavor. A lot of people prefer this, like I said before, prefer the flavor of this over spinach. But that's all I've got for stinging nettle. Remember, you cook the leaves, boil them 10-15 minutes. You don't want to eat them raw right off the plant. And then you can use the stalks, the bark around the stalks, to make cordage. But that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Hope you join me again.